Hello everyone, thank you for joining today. Today's presentation is a high-level overview of the core features of Cruz Operations Center. You may have known the product also as OMNM or Open Managed Network Manager. As of version 9, the name simply changed to CruzOC, but it is the same software. It is created by Dorado Software, and we still have the same affiliation with Dell, and the support is the same as it was in the previous product. So there's really no change other than the name here. The software is a multi-vendor platform. It supports many vendors and many different types of hardware or virtualized platforms. So keep that in mind as we go through the demo. I'm going to start the demonstration off by providing the various ways that you can have visibility to all of your infrastructure, and then we'll narrow down and drill into the individual features. So after a simple discovery process, you'll be provided with a topology similar to what you see here, minus the background image which you can impose. This could be a background image of a geographic area, it could be a rack, a data center, whatever you want here, and you can simply move components around to where you want to save them to get that kind of contextual view of the infrastructure. From this view, you can drive a lot of your work. If you're more visually oriented, you can easily see where you're having problems in your network. A lot of red means you have a lot of devices down, and so these red, green, and yellow indicators are simply alarm levels that have come either from the network or from internal types of activities. And so with a simple right click, I can go to a details mode and pull up very detailed diagnostics and information about this particular device. There's all sorts of tabs here to get to ports and interfaces, look at history of the device, look at performance of the device. But from topology, we came here for the alarm, so we can go over to that screen and we quickly see that we had basically an authentication failure and then maybe a monitor type of event that had come into this particular device. So this is an example of an external a trap from a device or from the network, an authentication failure, or we have also internal types of events that we trigger based on a variety of things. And this one happens to be a monitor. If something gets exceeded, a bandwidth threshold, you'll see this monitor attribute trend. All of these will roll up into your topology to show you a kind of a view here on the topology where your problems are at. You'll also notice that the links are also colored, and so if you have a link level alarm, a link down, that sort of thing, that will also turn red, and also with simple right-click options you can go and interrogate that event in more detail. You'll notice I have various labels on these screens that you can add. You can do linked views if you want to pop over to another view. Simply create that linked view and it will take you to a new topology view. This allows you to branch to other views if your topology starts to get a little bit too complex. Allows you to refine that a bit for you. Another type of view here is the hierarchy view. And in this view, it allows you to create these hierarchy nodes that you see here on the left. You can group your devices in these nodes pretty much however you like. It could be by IP address, by subnet, by name, by model, vendor, whatever it is. This happens to be by location. And so what I can do here is when I click into a particular area, I can quickly see a topology view of that area. Here's another example of for example, a floor map. Maybe with some APs placed on it. But what you get here is the alarm levels then roll up to these hierarchy nodes here on the left, so you can quickly see if you have a lot of these nodes, which ones are red, green, and so you can quickly drill into those things to further investigate. What you'll notice here is that also, and you'll see this throughout the application, that other portlets or applications, as you see here, the managed resources and the alarms, will auto-populate with the context of whatever is selected. And so you'll see just the managed resources for that area, or that node, or the alarms for that node. And you'll see this throughout the application, but it does give you that ability to focus in quickly into maybe what you want to look at. And by the way, all of these maps can be exported to Visio. If you want to pull them into Visio and add more labels or somehow refine that image, you can do that as well. And then the last one here is our geographic topology. If you would like to see this on a more of a Google Map sort of layout, You'll notice here we're still using the same hierarchy tree, and basically that drives the context of this map, and so you can see the event levels in more of a grouping sort of fashion, and so you see where you easily see by location where your critical events are at. I can drill into these nodes, create subnodes to get more detailed maps. Here's a, maybe a region there, and then even narrow it down to like even a smaller region. From the Resources tab, I can also see all of my infrastructure in a simple tabular format. As you go through the application, you'll also notice that there's various columns that can be customized. You can sort by any of these columns. And you can also do very easy searching simply by putting in partial or full parts of a name of a device to quickly bring that up on the screen. With a simple select here, or even multi-select, I will have access to pretty much all of the features of the product on an individual or a multi-select basis. And I can go into things like a topology to see the topology of a device, various things around action scripting. We'll talk about that when we get to the automation and actions page, but it allows you to run scripts. Preceded ones that we have already put in the product, or your own individual manual scripts that you've put in. You can also do drift detection through our change of termination process. You can invoke that on demand here, or you can also compliance policy scanning for any previous policy that's been created in the system. We'll talk about that too when we get to the compliance page. These both are in that drift detection area where we can either just use change of termination to determine if something has changed. You might not know what. It will just emit an event letting you know that something has changed since the last time the configuration was checked. Or you may go even to more detail here where you may have created a policy where you're looking for specific parameters that need to be in your configuration files, or maybe not in your configuration files. And you want to make sure that that status is checked. You could execute those here and you would get an alarm on a failure, and you can hook that into emails or other types of actions, and we'll talk about that more when we get to automation. But that's drift detection, a couple of options there. Devices generally will have the management interfaces that are involved. You'll be able to direct access to a device. If you have SNMP access, you'll have mid-browser access. You can go to a terminal session. Similar to a PuTTY, you can type in any command right into the command window of that device. And in some cases, you'll even have an HTTPS interface, a web interface, for a switch or even something like iDRAC, where you want to go right to that user interface. You would see an HTTPS option here. Moving down the list here, various things around event management. We'll talk about that more when we get to alarms. File management is a key area that provides a lot of benefit in terms of tracking your configuration files, and as well as deploying operating system images. You can do it here by on demand or through multi-select, but you can go look at the latest config, compare configs. You can do backup on demand here, restore of a config, and even deploy a firmware after selecting the device. You can discover new links, layer 2, layer 3 links, or create your own new manual links. Maybe you have a link that you just want to have a logical link on the topology screen, and this will persist that link for you. On the performance page, you can go right to top-level performance for the device, show top talkers. It will show the most chatty interfaces on your device, or you can see key metrics like CPU, memory, and disk for the device. And then it's very easy to add these to various monitors depending on what you need. Moving down the list here, there's some tight integration with Dell that I should mention here. One of them is Support Assist. This is the ability to tell a Dell device to send its diagnostic data up to Dell so that they can analyze that data. And that's something you can turn on or leave it on all the time. It's helpful if you need to troubleshoot the hardware or something going on with one of your devices. Other integrations with Dell here. Let me find a Dell switch here. Just as an example, we have automatic options here for a lot of the devices, including the Dell devices, that will allow you to automatically create configuration and send it to a device to have it start sending traffic flow data to Cruz Operations Center. So this makes it easy for you. You don't have to go to each device manually. You can simply use these create configuration scenarios and send that configuration to the device to get that automatically. Another tight integration is with the warranty reporting. There's an option for opting into warranty reporting. You would see that on the home page on the Getting Started. Once you opt in, that will allow us to go and correlate any warranties related to your service tag of your devices up to a Dell API and a Dell database, allowing us to pull in information about when those warranties are expiring. And in the product, we will alert you 30, 60, and 90 days out when those warranties are coming close to expiration, allowing you to renew, make sure that your devices are in compliance and kept up to date. You'll also notice on this screen here, as I mentioned, the context sensitivity. As I click various equipment here, I'm getting the ports and interfaces automatically loading here. So again, giving you that focus on the device that you're interested in. Similarly, with the top level resources, we have port level resources where you can do various things with. You can go and edit it and look at the details, look at the topology, various other things, actions. This is where you might want to select one or more ports and push a VLAN configuration to those ports. Maybe you want to put a VLAN on 3 or 4 ports all at once. You can simply do that through an action or with any other port level action that's in the system, or one that you may have created. Various other options here for getting performance and various things here. Similarly, on the resource level, you have similar right-click options. You'll notice at the bottom here we have connected devices. We're going to have an understanding of all the devices connected to your network. If you want to search by port to see its MAC or by MAC to see its port, it's very easy to do in here. Simply click on the little magnifying glass here and type in a full or partial identifying characteristics, and it will find that for you. You may have noticed these buttons here. These are customizable buttons that users are free to put in to help them customize their workflow. You'll see this throughout the application on the various portlets. These are all simply hooked to actions. Similar to the right-click actions that you see here, there is a host of actions already in the system. Again, they could be ones you created as well. And you can simply hook those to a button. And that allows you to customize your workflow so that you can have easy access to the common things that you do in the system. On the Configuration Management tab, we're going to perform all of the tasks related to file backup, restore, or OS image deploy. And this not only applies to switches and routers and those types of things, but we can also provide access to the server configuration profiles for your iDRACs and other BMCs. So with a simple selection of a device here, you'll notice that my configuration portlets are all automatically populated. I can do things like selecting various files and then doing a simple compare. Quickly, the differences are pointed out, a very nice troubleshooting tool when you need to determine if there was a configuration change that was maybe responsible for a problem. It's very easy to compare. You can also come in here and very quickly create new configuration. I can come in here and add whatever changes I want to here. To a file, for example, change a VLAN in the configuration, save it. You'll notice I have a version 4 now, and with a simple right click and restore, I can push that configuration back out to the device. So a very quick way to affect configuration. You can also back up your devices to a label, and the nice part about that is I can select multiple different devices and give them all a label, for example, a gold label, meaning my configuration is good in my network and I want to have this as my baseline. And so this allows me then to restore to that baseline later on if I have a particular problem and I just want to put those baseline configs back out. I simply restore with a simple multi-select of devices and a simple right click and then restore of those labeled files. Down below here we see the image repository. This is where all of our images are kept for either BIOS, for either operating systems like Windows, actually any BIOS, whatever devices are in the system. We could have those BIOS in the system here, or we can have firmware images for switches, routers, and firewalls. We seed the Dell firmware images out of the box. But you may need to bring in new images. It's very simple to do with a new firmware image and simply import that from your hard drive. And then you can deploy those very easily either by selecting the firmware image from your list here and do a simple right click and deploy, and then select the group of devices either by static selection or through group management, and then deploy to that firmware to all those devices at the same time. You can also go to a device individually, obviously, or through multi-select over here and just simply do a deploy, and then you select the firmware you want to apply to that device. So this screen is meant to be a dashboard for all of those configuration management capabilities. You'll see alarms related to all of those activities, backup failures, success, those kind of things. Down below you have all your schedules for your backups, and generally these are done off of groups. You simply add your group in there, and you can create static or dynamic groups in whatever fashion you need. And then we have various reporting features here. You'll notice configuration change reports, firmware change reports, firmware reports, all sorts of reports preceded for you for your firmware inventory. You'll also notice here that we have customized this managed resources portlet to show you the firmware versions of your devices when they were last backed up, next deploy, last configuration. And so you can have a quick at-a-glance view of your system and all the firmware that's on it. And if you're interested in templates, it's very easy to come in here and create a template from a config file. There's actually various options to do this. Easiest one here is to come in here, simply select a sample file. For example, maybe you want to templatize this one and simply go through a promote process that creates a template that can be then pushed against multiple devices all at the same time. Our next topic is compliance. This is also change determination and compliance. So on this dashboard, you're going to see everything related to those types of activities. At the top here, we see our policies. These are compliance policies that can be created to enforce the configuration on your various devices. Now, this can be as simple as just a cut and paste of a config snippet off of a configuration file, and it will simply go out and scan those target devices for that criteria. Very simple to set up. Again, it could be just a cut and paste of a criteria. An example might be something like SNMP server community public. Maybe you don't want that on your devices, so you scan your devices for that string, and if it finds it, it could create a failure, a compliance failure or a compliance violation, in which case you're going to see something in event history as well as in the alarm window saying that you have a compliance failure notification. Now, these notifications can be hooked into automation for email, but you can take that to a little bit more of an advanced level where you can actually create a compliance remediation action that is triggered by that specific policy failing, in which case you could have it go and remediate by applying, for example, a compliant config, your gold configuration, or it could be more specific and more targeted where you have a specific command line action that goes and returns or negates that prior command that is out of compliance. And for example, in the SNMP community public example, you might have an action that says no SNMP server community public, removing that specific string off of the box. So it allows you to be very focused and very targeted in how you keep your devices under compliance. And as I mentioned earlier, the change determination process is the simple drift detection where you will just be notified if something changed or not in a check, and that's simply controlled by a change determination process schedule. Simply turn that on, and when it's turned on, it will go out and scan, as I mentioned, for changes on your configuration files, and if it's detected, it will automatically back up the device again, so that you could only have this running for your backup schedules, and that ensures that you're only backing up when things have changed. Down below here, you'll see reports related to those type of change and compliance processes. We have a compliance violation report that will tell you all the violations from the last scheduled run. You can also run a configuration change report that will tell you the actual snippet or pieces of configuration that were either added or removed from a particular device. Now, these can all be hooked into the automation. So if you're notified of a drift detection, either through change determination or through a policy that fails, you can hook that into automation and tag it with not only an email, but you can also have it, in addition to doing the remediation actions, you can also send a report. Maybe you want to send a change report along with that so that whoever receives that can review that report to see if the changes are something to be concerned with. Moving on to the automation and actions page, this is a very powerful area of the software that allows you to create those actions that we discussed, as well as doing our automation rules. On the action side, there's various actions that are already seeded in the system. And so you'll see that we have pages and pages of these actions, and they'll vary by device, obviously. But what you can do is create your own as well. So you can come in and create your own show commands, your own configuration commands. You can even create templates through this process for your config files if you need to, run external executables, and even do RESTful type web services if you have a target that supports a REST service. So these actions are actually configuration commands that you send to the device. You can put attributes in them. And just to give you a quick example here, let me find an N3 here as an example here. I'm going to go right click and go to actions. And you saw this already on the prior pages, but I'm going to show you a specific one here. And so you'll notice we have things categorized in show config, manage diagnostic. These are just the way they were they were set up. But let's say, for example, you want to add a VLAN. And again, these are pre-seeded ones, but you could have created your own. And we say you want to add a VLAN. Continue. Simply put in, partial or part of the VLAN ID and some name that you want for this particular parameters for this action. Some actions don't have any parameters, you just execute them. But this allows you to come in here and preview it, and now you can see this is how simple this script was, just a simple config, VLAN database, VLAN, and basically your parameters are automatically inserted here under the VLAN name and then the name of the VLAN. So you would simply just execute this or schedule it, and it would execute on your demand or when you schedule it. So this is where you can also do it multi-selecting. You could either come here and multi-select from the Manage Resources portlet, or depending on what it is, when you go to execute one of these, it will give you an option to select either the top level or the port level type options, depending on what needs to be selected there. So it's a very nice way to push out one-to-many. So you may want to push a command out to many different devices. Maybe you want to set up that SNMP server community string and push the same one out to 10 or 100 devices. Simply execute the action, selects the targets, and it will push them all out at once. These actions can be grouped. They can be parallel, sequential. They can be scheduled on the groups portlet over here, and so you can have a little bit of control over when these are executed through a schedule, or even if you wanted them to stop on error or continue on error. Those kind of things are all available through the actions grouping. The automation processing rules, the event processing rules, are available to you here with a simple right click. There's a various types of ways you can do automation. You can do syslog escalation if you want to be more discrete on what types of syslogs come into the system. Or you can have them all come in, but if you wanted to refine that, you could do that through this process. There's stream-based correlation, where you can, this is something like a frequency threshold is something like if something happens 5 times, well, then only do I want to see an alarm. Or there's the state flutter. If you have, for example, a port flapping up, down, up, down, up, down, well, maybe you don't care about that unless it happens 10 times in a row. Well, you can set that in here, and it would not emit that event until you saw that condition met. There's event definition override. Maybe you have a device you don't care about, and it keeps sending you, this alarm you don't care about. You can simply reject or suppress it. You can reset severities. You can have full control over what devices you want to control this type of behavior on. Then finally, the automation is where you're going to set up the email notification. So it's simply a matter of coming into this screen here and providing a name here of your rule, and then just specifying the event, one or more, that you want to trigger your automation. And if you want to go to further details of limiting when this executes, you can add additional filter conditions. It could be maybe you want to restrict it to a certain subnet, specific device type, or whatever. You can set that in the filter conditions. But really what you want to do then is do something useful, and this could be as simple as adding an email. Simply come in here and give it some name here, and then add your username, whoever that is, or even a distribution list, all sorts of ways to format the email, or even a text that goes out on the SMS side. I would simply set those parameters here, and that becomes an action for that type of event when it comes in. You can also add other actions here, which is really where the power comes in, because not only can you send an email, but you can actually come in here and select any one of those actions that are in our actions portlet, either one you created or one we've created. It could be anything from one of your created actions. Maybe you could just apply that here. If it has parameters, you can enter it here as well. Maybe you want to do a backup action, at the same time if something's detected, or even a restore here. You could do that as part of these actions. So just build up your processing rule here, and it will just execute that every time those conditions are met. Okay, on the next screen we'll talk about performance monitoring. With an enablement of just a few basic monitors, namely our default interface monitor, you'll automatically start getting data populated on your performance dashboard. Now we automatically turn on ICMP monitoring, but the interface monitor will then populate things like you see in the middle column here, things like packet loss, interface errors, input errors, output errors. So you're getting that on a per port or interface level. You'll see top interface bandwidth on the right, so you can get indication of which interfaces have the highest usage, either total or received or transmitted. And then on the left here we see memory utilization. CPU, temperature, disk, and ping response. These are KPIs. And so, you'll notice that these also show some red, green, and yellow. These are all indicators of thresholds that have been predetermined and preset for you, but you can customize your thresholds on any of these different applications that are being monitored. So even on the interface level, you can set your own thresholds and conditions so that you can be alerted when things exceed things. For example, over here on the interface bandwidth, if you want to go above 80%, and you want to see a critical alert, we have a predetermined threshold, but you can also set those on your own. So this is meant to be a health dashboard for your entire system, letting you know where the potential problems are going to be in your network. I can easily come over to the cloud switch and see, hey, this is going to be a problem, and so I need to do something about that. And so you're going to have access to all of the right-click options to interrogate that device in further details to determine maybe what's going on there. You run actions, run change management, backup, restore configuration. All those things are available here. Similarly, at the interface level, you'll have a set of options that are available to you to further interrogate any sort of issues there. We also have a pre-seeded dashboard that's going to give you the what we call the top talkers across all your devices, and so we're going to tell you what your most chatty interfaces, and these are preset, but you can modify this view and pull in whatever you need to here. But it gives you a quick snapshot into those top talkers in your environment, and then you also have full capability to create your own dashboards. There's many different layouts of your dashboards here. Let me just see if I can find one here. Here's an example here. You can basically, any attribute that we're collecting in the system, you can tie to a dashboard view. You simply come in and select the attributes and the targets, and you come in and launch these very easily on demand here to see that information. And so this happens to be a bar graph and then a line graph. This one is showing HTTP response times and then the access code that we're getting from that URL. So a variety of things you can put in here. It could be those other attributes from those other dashboards, but you can configure those however you need to. And in our resource monitors area there, this is where you can come in and create your own new monitors if you need to. These can all be copied and templated, so when you create these monitors, if you need to just easily create a new one, they're very easy to recreate through the copy. Really a large variety of other monitors you can create across various things. Cisco, there's Unisphere, Unity, compellent type storage, LUNs, port monitoring for those operating systems, Juniper, a variety of things here. Pretty much you can create any monitor with our ACLI monitor that allows you to basically track CLI output and place that on a monitor. So lots of functionality there. A closely related area is our traffic flow. And so this allows us to consume any type of flow, IPFix, JFlow, CFlow, NetFlow. All of that can be consumed in the product. And as I mentioned on those earlier pages in the Resource Manager, it's very easy to configure with simple right-click options to tell a device to start sending us that data. Once you get that command on the box, will start sending us the data, and you'll see these portlets with data in them. And we separate these things out into things like applications, and these are traffic flow packet type nomenclature here. Applications, you'll see protocols, you'll see conversations. I like this one because it's showing the two IPs that are talking and the actual protocol they're using. We have endpoints. This is the top volume endpoint, either receiving or sending. But you could just see it just by the top senders, the top receivers, and then we have by the top subcomponents. So these are actually the interfaces that are having data sampled on them and that we're gathering data from, and then even by the managed resource that's sending the information. And then we have autonomous systems if you're using AS. All of these portlets you can drill into to get more information. And so let's just say you wanted to look at this managed resource here. Maybe you have this N series that's exporting data. Simply double click on that, and it's going to provide us a graph of the data over time. Now, I don't have a lot of data in my lab here, so you're seeing some gaps in the data here, but I can change that here by changing the interval to every 6 hours or the last 6 hours. And it's showing my peaks in my traffic. And so that's useful. Someone may complain and say, I'm having problems at a certain time of day, and you can come in here and see when that traffic is peaking. I can further interrogate the screen by saying, okay, well, I also want to see then what applications are flowing across this particular exporter by time. And again, I can see that then where my traffic is spiking and what traffic it is. And here is SNMP here at 6:30 in the morning. I can also choose something like conversations and then see what two IPs are having the most conversations or the most traffic for a particular time. At 6:30, I see this green here is from 051 to 6.140. So it allows you to really drill in and figure out what's going on. I can actually be even more granular in that somebody may say, hey, my PC is slow at 6:30 in the morning or something like that. So you come in here, just put in either a full or a partial IP address, or it could be a protocol actually, and you basically select the device, and here I'm seeing the traffic for that particular device. And again, you may not have a lot of data here, so we can maybe change the graph here to see what was going on. So now I can see all the graph related to that endpoint, this 0.51 over time here. Then I can interrogate that further and say, okay, what are its conversations? And then I can see by that particular IP address who it's talking to. So you see here, there's 6.41 or 6.140, 6.140 is mainly the traffic we're seeing. So yeah, again, I could come in and put in a particular application, and maybe like BitTorrent. Maybe I want to go and find quite a few there with Bit, but maybe I want to go look at my BitTorrent. I simply click on that. It's going to show me all the graphs related to that traffic. I don't think I have much here, but that's the idea. All of this data can be carved out just about any way you need and reported on as well. On the alarms and events, this is generally sort of a knock view. You basically want to look at all your events. Again, all these columns are sortable by whatever you need. All alarms, events, and traps are defined as either event or alarm. If it's an alarm level, it'll show up in the alarm side. If it's just a general event, a lower severity, it'll show up in our event history. Everything is logged down there. With a simple right click, you're going to have options to come in here and do various things in terms of looking at the alarm itself, even the event definition behind it. You can even look at the alarm details. You can look at the resource associated to it and its details. Even go to topology if you need to. Various things like acknowledging, assigning, clearing group of alarms, even emailing. These alarms can also be syslogs. So as you generate syslogs, they will show up in the same panel, and you will see them here. All of these can be, again, hooked into that automation. Types of things is to send these up to like ServiceNow or some other ITSM system. Very simple to do. It's just a simple REST action from that actions portlet that we looked at earlier. And so it's very easy to set those up to be forwarded if you need to. These can be northbound forwarded or sent to another SNMP receiver if needed. In this screen here, I'm going to just demonstrate how some of these portlets have expanded capabilities. What you've been seeing so far are these summarized portlets. Again, you have options here to customize these in various ways. You can even click on the wrench icon. This is where you can adjust the columns, column orders, just drag them around, set action buttons on any of these panels. Can be done here as well. You can set the default filter even here if you want to. So just keep that in mind. Simply by saying no chart here, it'll allow you to come in here and then set a predefined filter if you want to. But when clicking on the plus sign here in the upper right here, you're going to get more expanded portlet, which gives you a little bit of added functionality. It's a slightly different view and a little bit more details in some cases. But you can come in here and you'll notice predefined drop down of filters here. If you want to have more flexibility, you can come in here and just simply create your own filter simply by adding and creating your own filter here. Simply build up that filter, those filter conditions, whatever it is. And then once you have that condition saved up, simply just save as. Once you save it, it'll be available here on this simple drop down list to say, oh, I just want to see things that came in the last 30 minutes maybe. And, or even by device or whatever your filter is. So it gives you some expanded capabilities there. Of course, you always have the quick search here where you can just type in a fuller part of a name here and search that way. And again, you're noticing here that there's some internal type events here. So again, we will generate alarms when things don't go correctly, actions failing, backup failing, pro scans or compliance policies failing, monitor anything that's being monitored. You're going to see those thresholds and those events generated per the threshold settings. And of course, they could be alarms from the network. Reporting. There are a lot of preceded reports already in the system. And generally reports are based on templates. You create a template and then you can generate any number of reports from those templates. An inventory report is an example. You might have an inventory template, but you may have an inventory report that you just want to report wireless, and then maybe you have one for your servers and maybe one for your switches, and so you can easily create reports based on that single template simply by filtering on the report. An example here is of just some of our inventory reports. I'm just putting in a partial name of some reports here, and we're seeing things like we have a server asset inventory. There's other things in here, inventory asset, inventory reports. So generally to execute these, you just come in here and say execute the report, and what will happen is here on the My History, it will show you on demand the report, and you simply click on the little magnifying glass there to get that report for you. And so what you're seeing here is just the columns that have been identified in the template, the name, model, vendor, and location for this report. And those are the kind of things that can be modified in the template very easily to add different attributes or remove attributes, set the column widths, those kind of things are all freely accessible for you to customize those reports if you need to. You can also execute these in advanced mode. So if you have a report that you need to generate periodically, maybe you need to send out an inventory report, maybe it's a bandwidth utilization report. Every Friday you got to send it out for certain ports. Well, you'd want to do that through our scheduling. So you can simply come in here and specify the format, CSV, HTML, or PDF, and simply set that, and then come in and add the email of who you want to receive that report, and then you can also persist this to a local directory if you need to, if you want to save those reports. But simply schedule that, and that report's going to be generated at that interval for you, so you don't have to worry about doing it. It's a good way to send out executive type reports to your management if they need to see certain things periodically. Other interesting reports include those change reports that I mentioned. I'm going to put on here just the change. And so, you have reports pre-built for you for software changes, or we could sometimes call them firmware changes, depending on if we're talking about firmware changes versus other types of things. But this will tell you what's changed. If you've upgraded them, you'll see those change reports. You'll see hardware changes if you added a new stack member or removed a stack member. Those kind of things would show up on that report. Various other things, your firmware changes on your BIOS, on your BMC for your iDRACs, those kind of things would show up on that report. Configuration changes is that report that will give us it will actually show the changes between two configurations on a file, configuration file. So that could be your server configuration profile that might have changed on an iDRAC, or it could be a switch configuration, but it will show you those differences. Other examples include things like bandwidth utilization. We have pre-built reports here for bandwidth utilization, and if you wanted to refine these further, you can simply copy one of these and say, I just want to see the last 7 days, but maybe you want to filter it down to one specific device. So you just simply set that in the new report that you're copying, and it would basically be consolidated to that device. So all these are preceded and ready to go for you to customize or utilize as you see fit. So there are literally hundreds of reports and report templates in here, and generally you can find what you need out of the box here, but if you need to create something on your own to customize your environment, that's very easy to do. On the settings tab, some things I'm not going to go into too much detail on here, but auditing, we have audit trails. We audit everything in the system, so you're going to build a track. Who does what action or what, whatever they're doing in the system against whatever target, you're going to see that in the system, who did it, what IP address they did it from, and so you'll have full tracking of that. Can completely filter on any of that stuff to further refine what you might want to see. In here you can look at alarm definitions and modify those, do custom correlations if you need to. Your group management allows you to do those static and dynamic groups. Setting those up is in here. Monitor management is setting up the monitors, and you have a schedule manager here. A variety of other things here related to the system here. Support assist is what I mentioned earlier. This is an area we can come and look at those integrations with Dell for the warranty reporting and the support assist options. And then finally, in wrapping up, there's a lot of features here. And sometimes you want a little more focus. Maybe you want your own custom page. It's very easy to set up a custom page simply by clicking on the Add Page and simply giving it a name and hitting the check mark. Sorry about that. And hitting the check mark here, going to that page. And then once you're on the page, simply just add whatever applications. Everything we saw is an application or a portlet. And so you could simply come in here and just define the pages you want to add. Maybe I want to add, maybe you want to add the interfaces portlet. Maybe you want to add the resource manager. Let me just manage resources. Let's add that in here. Maybe a top-end portlet. Maybe you want to see, your CPU utilization. Anyway, you can add whatever you want on these pages. There's ways you can just easily customize the layout here. Simply drag and drop the order you want them in, and then just refresh the page, and there you go. You have a fully customized page here that you can actually come in and even customize further if you want to set custom filters, reset the columns, reset the order, the order of the columns, the types of columns. Anything on the screen can be customized for you, and it doesn't affect anything else. So a user can come right into this page and just do what they need to do. Now, if you're interested in more of a large environments with multi-tenancy, you can actually have it when they log in. They only come to this page, and this is all they see, and they'll only have access to the resources, the ports, interfaces, and devices that you give them access to, as well as any other features and functionality you want to give them access to. They would have that customized view, and they would only see this page. That's a more advanced topic that we'll cover in a later demo. Okay, in closing and wrapping this up here, I just want to emphasize that a lot, if not all, the functionality you see is out of the box, built in, and just by the fact of discovering your devices, items are put in the correct groups, the categories, so that you're automatically seeing everything in the proper context. There's no additional work unless you really want to do some extra customization. That option is there, but generally out of the box, you're gonna have what you need, at least to get started. And so, not a lot of initial setup. Should be good to go with a few minor options here. The recommendation here is to go to the home page and run through our getting started page here, which is going to basically set up those things for you. It doesn't take long to go through, but you'll set up all the main features, including enabling the monitor, or discovering, enabling those monitors and traffic flow and those sorts of things, so that everything is just ready to go. Okay, I want to thank you for watching this video, and please stay tuned for additional videos, deeper dive on each of those features. Thank you.